I'm okay with an investigation. What I'm not going to be okay with is partisan bullshit driving how that investigation is going to look to the American people. So let us go on now to US politics, starting with the House of Representatives. The chaos of last week's bitter battle to vote for Kevin McCarthy for Speaker of the House will likely pale in comparison to the media frenzy that will follow the actions of the new House's majority. McCarthy finally won the Speaker's chair in the 15th round of voting after Republicans nearly came to blows in the 14th round. 6 of the hardliners who fought McCarthy's run for Speaker eventually voted present. And that was enough to give McCarthy the win, because voting present reduced the amount of people that were needed to reach a majority. The first thing that the House acted on after finally electing a Speaker was the rules of the House, which governed the business of the chamber for the next 2 years. The first bill passed by the 118th House targeted funds in the Inflation Reduction Act, or the IRA. During the debate on the bill, every Republican contended that the funds were designed to appoint 87,000 gun-toting IRS agents, leading to audits of hardworking Americans. But this is a lie, one that has been debunked many times since the IRA was first passed and announced last year. We've debunked those before on this program, and we're going to keep doing it as long as they keep bringing it up. So in reality, these funds are allocated as followed: $46 billion to enforce tax laws, $25 billion for general operations, $5 billion for modernization, and $3 billion for taxpayer services. The funds will be released over a 10-year period, which means about $4 billion a year or so. IRS funding is down 20% since 2010. Its enforcement staff is down 31%. Audit rates for millionaires are down 70% since 2010, and audits on large corporations are down approximately 54%. It's estimated that rich tax cheats evade $160 billion a year in taxes that they owe. It's these facts that prompted the inclusion of these funds in the IRA. The law applies to individuals and families earning over $400,000 a year as well. It will not increase audits of families with incomes under $400,000 a year. The law will increase enforcement staff from 6,500 to 13,000. It's obvious that this will not pass the Senate. So it is dead on arrival because no one wants to have this debate again, and the Democrats control the Senate, so it's just kind of a virtue signaling nonsense for them to show that they really care about their base, which is the big money donors that flood their pockets with dollars every year to keep on campaigning and keep on living that good life. Maybe we should do something about lobbyists. I don't know. That's just me. Next up from this house is the select committee formed China v. U.S. competition. So every Republican and all but 65 Democrats, so majority of Democrats, voted to establish a select committee that will focus on the strategic competition between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party. Quoting from the bill itself states that, quote, "The sole authority of the Select Committee shall be to investigate and submit policy recommendations on the status of the Chinese Communist Party's economic, technological, and security progress and its competition with the United States." This is probably a pretty good thing. I'm not one to encourage saber rattling, but if the Chinese government is subverting laws, international laws, World Trade Organization, manipulating currencies or what have you, it should be investigated and steps should be taken to mitigate those. So I'm 100% for that, which is why most Democrats voted for it. Another select committee is going to be the weaponization of the DOJ. And this is where it gets funny. So according to reporting from The Hill and the New York Times, Republicans approved a select subcommittee on, quote, "the weaponization of the federal government" in a party line vote on Tuesday. The panel will have unique sweeping powers, including the ability to issue subpoenas to wide swaths of the federal agencies. House Republican leaders said that the panel will investigate how the FBI's Department of Justice and Department of Homeland Security and other executive branches operate. It also has authority to obtain some of the most sensitive secrets in the government, including information about covert actions that is usually the exclusive territory of the Congressional Intelligence Committee. Some Democrats said it's a, quote, tinfoil hat committee and slammed the panel as a zealous group that would pursue conspiracy theories and unverified accusations of misconduct. But Democrats won't be boycotting this select committee, as Republicans did in January 6th committee. They agreed to sit on this committee and other committees to prevent Republicans from having unfettered ability to choreograph hearings and controlling the narrative. Freshman Congressman Daniel Goldman, Democrat of New York, said it this way, quote, "I rise to make something crystal clear. The primary purpose of this special select committee is to interfere with the special counsel's ongoing investigation into a conspiracy to overturn the 2020 election. This is a shocking abuse of power," he said. Continuing on, quote, "My Republican counterparts can dress up the subcommittee with a menacing name, but let's call it what it really is, the Republican Committee to Obstruct Justice." The panel has broad reach to become a main instrument for Republicans to go after the Biden administration. This could potentially lead to showdowns over access to highly classified information and the details of criminal inquiries. These kind of select committees are being politicized because no one, along with the Republicans, really like the idea of like Democrats trying to hold Trump accountable for anything. And they think this is going to be tit for tat. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Yada, yada, yada. Turnabouts, fair play, what have you, right? But we need to understand that there are differences and nuances for things of these nature. So I'm all for there being a committee to investigate, let's say, how the Department of Homeland Security approached social media companies in order to have social media companies either enforce their own TOS or share information. I'm okay with an investigation. What I'm not going to be okay with is partisan bullshit driving how that investigation is going to look to the American people. That is why that I was very upset when Devin Nunes released the Comey memo that he submitted to Congress prior to coming out and speaking about it publicly when he was going to reinvestigate Hillary Clinton's emails due to stuff that was found on Anthony Weiner's laptop. They released that in order to show that we can't trust Hillary Clinton on anything. Look, the DOJ, the FBI, they're looking into her again. Turned out it was nothing, right? It was information they already had. It was like an erroneous re-download of like files from a cloud or something. Like it wasn't anything that hadn't already been turned over. And it was just more look of like improprietary, right? And we know that's where they're going to go because the Twitter files, which we will do a full deep dive on it in the future essay video. The Twitter files themselves have been just that. They have been pretty much a giant nothing burger for the most part of like the Twitter enforcing its own TOS, removing hacked or leaked content, removing information that is personal information, revenge porn from their website, and being painted as this giant like conspiracy of the government trying to enforce some sort of like run around of free speech of the First Amendment. That's not what was going on. There was maybe some people in the government, not like the executive branch, but in Congress saying, hey, if you're not going to do this, we'll regulate you to force you to do some things, right? Maybe there's some pressure there. I'll give that argument. At least it's just consideration. But the idea that the DOJ and the FBI were gunning for Trump from inside the deep state is just pure utter nonsense. It's cope. If anything, like these institutions, these police, for more or less police force actors, are going to be more biased towards conservative opinion on many things. In fact, if you go back to the 2016 election, there was worry that some different elements of the FBI were pro-Trump supporters, or at the very least very anti-Hillary Clinton, and were gunning for her and trying to find anything that they could that would stop her from winning the election. Is that right? It's not. But that's not a systemic issue of like the FBI coming after like politicians. That is a branch office with some bad actors in it, right? This isn't like a sweeping conspiracy of everybody trying to control whatever it is that comes out of the government. This is not the 1960s. This is not the 1950s. This isn't the CIA flexing its muscles, people. That time has passed. At least it has, in my opinion. So we need to acknowledge these differences here and do our due diligence and make sure that we have a critical eye of information that is released by political partisan actors. But with that, we got to continue on. So there's also the Omnibus Crime Control and Safe Streets Act. So another bill that was passed by the House this week was the Prosecutors Need to Prosecute Act, which targets cash bail across the country and will seek information on the number of cases where a plea deal is reached. Now, plea deals need to actually be looked into. It is a tool that the state uses in order to quickly solve cases. They use the threats of harder prosecution, of having longer term sentences against people to get them to cop to crimes that they may not have even committed in order to avoid going to jail for longer based on biased trials or what have you. Like, well, we have this information. Your buddy said that you did this trying to save his own ass. So if you plead guilty to this, instead of getting 10 to 15, we'll get you 5. That kind of stuff, right? Again, this is something that needs to be investigated. But what is happening here is partisanship bullshit. What is happening with this bill is the idea that prosecutors, radical leftist DAs that are controlled by George Soros, are going around the country being manipulated and letting crime run rampant because of like equity and inclusion. It's nonsense. That is not what is going on. This show, and you'll see it up here when we do the YouTube, this show did a pretty deep dive on the kind of progressive reforms that some people are trying to do across the country when it comes to bail, recidivism, policing, etc., right? And cash bail should not exist. Full stop, period. It does not protect people. What it does do is ensure that poor people that are accused of a crime can't get out and make themselves be still part of society. Doesn't matter if they're guilty or not. They are just being prevented from being able to be released in order to go back into society and continue to be working and being a productive, more or less, member of society. That is what cash bail does. Because if a person is a violent piece of crap but happens to be rich, they're going to be able to post bail. See, every single sports star that has been accused of domestic violence, we have video of football players punching their spouse, girlfriend, what have you, in the face and being released on $1 million bond. Tell me how that makes sense. How does that make sense? How is that keeping people safer? How is that keeping society safer? It's not. It's just giving the state some money. It doesn't ensure that the person shows back up to court, and it doesn't ensure that the crime is not committed again. It doesn't do it. It just gives the state some money because the state can put it in an escrow account, earn some interest off of it, and the person shows back up to court, they get their bond returned to them. And the state makes some money off the side. A bondsman, $1 million bond, hey, a football player, even though they're rich and famous, might not be able to produce that, but they can give the bondsman, I don't know, $100,000 maybe, $20,000, whatever that case might be. They can provide that, and somebody takes a little bit of cut off the top. It's bullshit. What keeps people safe is keeping violent people that have essentially been caught red-handed and are likely to commit violence again behind bars while their case is pending trial, and make sure that their trial happens quickly. And why don't we do that? We don't do that because it costs money. So hey, Republicans, I salute you. Please, for the love of God, actually look into this stuff. Democrats on the committees, hey, let's if there's a committee for this, do your part, man. Show the bullshit that this country goes through when it comes to justice. Please, we need to do more about this. We need to do more. All right, we got some more stuff we need to talk about this Congress. So let's continue on though. So there's also, because of course there is, some impeachment articles. Oh, again, They think turnabout's fair play because it was all a political stunt to get Trump. So we're going to hold Biden accountable. It's bullshit, man. It's just partisan fury. So U.S. Representative Pat Fallon, a Republican from Northeast Texas, filed articles of impeachment against the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Quote, Secretary Mayorkas has violated the law and implemented policies that undermined law enforcement activities at our southern border, Fallon said in a statement emailed to the Center Square. Fallon's resolution states that Mayorkas is being impeached for, quote, high crimes and misdemeanors in 3 articles that allege violations of federal laws, lying to Congress, and slandering Border Patrol agents. The impeachment resolution was referred to the House Judiciary Committee earlier this week. This is yet another piece of political theater, though, as the democratically controlled Senate will most certainly not take this up. What does this boil down to? Well, this is boiled down to the fact that some of these people are being honest about what's happening at the border, and the Republicans want more done at the border. And so since not enough is being done in their mind you, then, well, we got to get somebody in there that's going to be tough on immigration. They essentially want another Trump in charge of the border because cruelty was the point, my friends, because they believed it actually deterred people from coming to the country. Legally, illegally, doesn't matter. They don't want them here. And that's what the facts are. And on that note, so we're going to have our good friend Nate Dallin, an immigration lawyer, talk to us about things that are happening at the border, what he's seeing on the ground, and what it could mean for the United States in 2023. So be sure to check that out in a future episode. We're going to have to, but wait though, there's always more. So the House also passed the following bills: Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act, Strategic Production Response Act. The Strategic Production Response Act requires a little bit of explanation. So this is talking about not allowing the federal government, the executive branch, to release the strategic oil reserves to bring down gas prices and help you save a little money. That's what that one's about. They passed another bill called the Illegal Alien NICS Alert Act, which is obviously about some sort of like focus on illegal immigrants coming into the country and committing crimes, and no taxpayer funding for abortions and Abortion Insurance Full Disclosure Act of 2023. They also gutted, and this is something that McCarthy wanted to do, the Office of Congressional Ethics, and announced various investigations into President Biden and his son, Hunter Biden. They have also requested his bank records from the U.S. Treasury and Biden's brother, James. Because we're going to expose Trump and all the little bullshit he's done. Hey, we got to expose what you've done too. Now, it's not going to matter if Biden has done anything shady or not while in office. They'll drum up something to show that he did. Again, this is a pure partisan exercise. I'm all for, hey, you know what? These investigations, let them happen. Sunshine's the best disinfectant, right? So if Biden got caught up in some scheme for something, hey, go ahead and investigate him. But don't pretend that you actually care about ethics and the rule of law and all this other stuff that you claim to care about when you're not willing to hold Trump accountable for the stuff he did while in office. Because we have a slew of stuff that he did in office. Monuments Clause violations, General Flynn going around doing things for him, the Chinese government giving Ivanka special deals, charging tens of thousands of dollars to stay at his hotel in D.C. Does he even own that anymore? The Trump Hotel in D.C.? Trump Hotel, Post Office, D.C. shuts down. I think it shut down. He sold it. Come on. Okay, I'm showing this one up. This happened a while ago. We're showing this right here. So Deadline, look at this. Check this out. Trump closes chapter in DC hotel as property is sold to investor group. May 11th of 2022. It's almost like it was all a giant scam to make money while being president, because he supposedly donated the profits of it. Sure, buddy. Sure. We really believe you. You can't make this stuff up, I swear.